Brandon, I really appreciate you hopping on the show. Pumped to jump into this, talk about all things military and entrepreneurial ventures and everything you've got going on. So this is super exciting. But as I do with every other individual, at the very beginning of the podcast, I'm going to jump into your background and then we will go from there. Brandon Grazier, or Grazier, whichever one you prefer, began his military career in 2010 with the Army Reserve before briefly attending college. Realizing it wasn't the right path, he transitioned to active duty in 2016. In 2017, he was stationed in Korea during escalating tensions with North Korea. Determined to push himself further, he attended selection in 2018 and graduated from the Special Operations Combat Medic (SOCM) program in 2020. His career took him to various operations, including a deployment to Niger in 2023. While serving, Brandon developed a passion for video production, launching his creative work in 2020 and turning it into a professional career by 2022. Around the same time an idea took shape, he noticed his teammates relying on energy drinks, just like we all do, not just for physical endurance, but for mental sharpness. This led him to research nootropics and performance-enhancing ingredients, eventually leading to the creation of A-Bomb Energy in 2023. After years of development, the full product launched in 2025, January of 2025. A-Bomb Energy was designed to go beyond just caffeine, using functional ingredients to enhance focus, mental clarity, and sustain energy. With a background in high-performance environments, Brandon applies the same precision and discipline from his military career to developing a smarter, more effective energy drink, which I think we both have one in front of us right now. So
Yeah, I'm
maybe a
drinking
good
the
time
same
to
one.
just drinking the same one. I've mentioned this now to you multiple times, but the branding on this is just insanity. It's amazing. And you don't, I mean, with like a basic Monster or Red Bull, like you know their brand, and obviously it's kind of stuck in the back of our minds now. Like we know those are, but when you see something like this, it immediately gets like the creative juices flowing, and you're like, all right, this is an energy drink that I can get behind, because it's not just flavorful, but also amazing branding at the end of the day.
All right, real talk. Whether I'm gearing up for a tough workout or preparing for an episode of the Cameron Brown Show, I need to be locked in. And that's where A-Bomb Energy comes in play. This stuff isn't just another energy drink. It was actually created by an Army Special Ops combat medic who wanted something better, something that actually helps you think clearer, focus longer, and retain information, not just give you a quick caffeine spike. And I can tell you, it really works. I've been drinking A-Bomb before I hit the gym, and it's like flipping a switch. My focus is on point, my energy is steady, and I don't get that crash afterward. Same when I'm recording this podcast. I need to be sharp, engaged, and A-Bomb helps me stay in the zone. Plus, it actually tastes great. So if you're looking for something that gives you a real mental and physical edge, go check them out at abombenergy.com. And when you order, just type Cameron in the notes so they know that I sent you. Trust me, you're going to feel the difference.
It just looks cool. You know,
It
I've
just
always
looks
been
dope.
obsessed with that atomic era.
Yep.
And I'm one of those guys where you go into a store, like a gas station or whatever. If I'm in the mood, you know, the mood strikes me good, stars align, I'm going to go for the coolest looking can.
Yeah, exactly.
That's me. I'm totally that sucker. I have no problem admitting that. So
100%. I mean, the branding is everything. The branding is everything, but also
totally.
the ingredients and everything else, which we're gonna get to that point in the podcast for sure. But I would like to start off and just going through your background, your upbringing, you know, the military side of things first, just to give people a little bit better understanding of who you are before we then jump into obviously what you are really mainly focused on right now. So just to kind of go back to that, you know, did you always see yourself going special operations, or did that just kind of occur later on as you got into the military?
Absolutely. I can't remember ever wanting to do anything else. Like, you know, my dad was in the Army. He was an infantryman for like 26 years or something like that. Got no knees back anymore. So, you know, it is what it is.
He had a great time though while he was in.
Oh yeah, he had a great time. And so like I never thought I would do anything else. And so while I was in high school, I decided to do this split option program where you can go to basic training between your junior and senior year, because I just wanted to get in so bad. I was like, yes, let me in. And the whole goal was actually to be an officer, go infantry, then transition to special operations at some point. And then while in school, I was just like, man, I am not a fan of this.
Yeah.
I am struggling. I wasn't ever good with like the typical didactic learning. I'm like a hands-on guy, like put it in my hands, teach me, maybe hold my hand a little and talk to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
That's how I learned. And I wasn't getting it. So I was like, I got to do something else. So I went over to active duty, and then started getting like really kind of bored with it. It wasn't challenging enough. It just seemed too simple for me.
Right.
And, man, I need to do more. So I actually went to SFAS in 2017. I failed. Deservingly, I failed. I was not ready. And then ended up going, I wanted to just be a medic really bad. And so then I heard about civil affairs and how you could be a special operations medic for them. And I was like, wow, that sounds good. Let's do that. And so went that route. And then I thought it was awesome at the time. So
Cool. You seem like a really, really high energy dude too. So there's got to be something going on at all times, I feel like. But being a medic is a certain kind of being a medic is a certain kind of human though, and I don't do well with blood just across the board, and I feel like some people just deal with like the human body better in those kinds of situations. So was it always going the medic route? Was it like a desire to be around and be helping people and healing people in that way, or what was kind of the reason for the medic route?
It kind of materialized because initially, like whenever I went to SFAS, I wanted to be an 18 Bravo, which is weapons sergeant. Then I was like, oh, then I'll go Charlie, which is engineer. Then I was like, oh, Echo. And Delta, the medic, was actually the last one that I wanted to do because I don't like blood. I don't like needles. I don't like any of that at the time. And then I was like, I was talking to a special operations recruiter, and he goes, the most valuable person on the team is the medic, because a mission cannot occur unless you have a medic with you. And I was like, oh, damn. All right. Well, I'm not totally dumb. I'm a little dumb, but I'm not totally dumb. So I think I can do it,
Yep.
So then it just kind of materialized, and I'm like, let's do it. Let's send it.
Very cool. Very cool. How much, I guess, before you deployed, because you deployed to Niger, are there any other deployments you can talk about, or was that your main deployment?
That was my main deployment.
Okay.
I did do the border mission in South Korea, where I was at Camp Casey, and then we kind of floated around. I was in an artillery unit there, and that was, there was some weird stuff that happened there. Actually, a lot of weird things. Like finding a field at the border just with like thousands of dead birds, little things like that. Then the whole Kim Jong-un shooting these missiles all across, over Japan was one of them. And then I don't know if you remember that Hawaii ballistic missile inbound alert that happened.
No, I remember him shooting one over Japan though. I do remember that one.
Yeah. So like Jack, I was talking to him about that. He was in Hawaii when everyone got that text message alert that said ballistic missile inbound, seek shelter. And so the theory is that potentially came from North Korea, because we were on alert for, I think, like a week or in some change. And that wasn't normal. Normally we're on alert for like a day or two. I don't know. There's a lot of weird things that happened in that 1 year time frame. It was actually kind of odd.
So that was kind of an interesting year of North Korea and just doing crazy things, which I haven't really heard much. Well, because of the elections and planes going down and other things that people are talking about nowadays, I haven't really heard much about North Korea. So I'm not sure how much you keep up with North Korea, but is there anything going on right now that you're aware of with them?
Not that I'm aware of. I know at one point they were supposedly sending troops into Ukraine. I'm not sure how
saw those videos.
Yeah. I'm always like really, really cautious what I see online, because there's some of those videos that were being shown on the North Korean troops in Ukraine were actually like training of them in North Korea. And I'm like, are they actually there? Or are we just being, I don't know, so I'm always like,
it's just another psyop.
So I'm always like really cautious about like what's actually going on.
Are you, when it comes to psyops, are you one of those guys that's like, oh, is everything a psyop sort of situation?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
they were on the same page, because for me, I'm like, every little thing I see, I'm like, there's maybe like there's a little bit of truth in that, but at the end of the day, I don't know that I 100% believe that. And unfortunately, that's become almost everything nowadays.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I hate that because your mind runs in a million different directions. And when you drink one of these guys, you're like, okay, well, now
Yeah.
now I can focus a little bit better. But
Yeah.
now you're high up on energy and you're like, okay, well, now I got to figure it out. And you're
Yeah.
at the end of the day, probably not going to figure it out. So
Yeah. I don't believe anything I see anymore at this point. Actually the first like instance where I kind of started like really question the media was when I was
yep.
in college. I was working mall security, just to kind of like pay bills and stuff. And an incident occurred, and it wasn't like a big deal, but the local media got involved and they turned it into like Watergate essentially at this point. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? That's not at all what happened. And then after that, I was like, oh, all these people are lying. All right, I got it. So I don't question.
That
I
also
question
happens
everything.
at a larger level too.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like if they're doing that local, I wonder what they're doing
How
nationally.
bad is it at the larger scale? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely think about that all the time. It's the conspiracy theories and the rabbit holes that we all love to go down, which they are fun, but you got to pull yourself out of them and reassess, what you're doing to yourself because mentally it's super draining.
Oh yeah, it's nice to take a step back too, because like I dive deep into stuff pretty hard, but it's nice to take a step back and then kind of like look at it from the outside, like what's going on
I
here,
always expect like my friends that are special operations or doing things like protecting Fauci and doing other things. I'm like, these guys know so much more. And then you talk to them and they're like, dude, I really like, I don't know much outside of my realm. That's really it. Because they're so dialed in. And obviously you've been so dialed in for so long. It's like, you're so dialed into what you're doing. You're not really worried about and can't really worry about other things. Is that kind of the case? I mean, has that been the case for you when you were in, or you think the whole PSYOP thing has always been something you've been focused on?
So I'll answer this I'll do my best to answer this. In 2020, when certain events occurred, that was like the curtain pulled, and I got my mindset completely changed. Because for me, going special operations was something I always wanted to do. And, my Q course for me was 3 years because SOCM's like a year. And then you have language school, and then you got to go through all the other stuff. And so for me, it was like wanting to do that. It's like the analogy I always give to people that ask me this, like, because, I've been in 15 years and like, you're crazy getting out at 15. What the hell's wrong with you? Do 5 more. No, it's like looking at a safe for 30 years. That's this beautiful safe. And you've been just for 30 years, just, cranking that dial. You get your stethoscope to it. You're listening for the tumblers. And then for me, it was, I finally cracked it. I opened it and it was empty. And I was like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was. And so once 2020 hit, that completely changed my mindset. Like I've always been kind of aware, but then it just opened it up even more. And I'm like, okay, all right. Roger that. Got it.
Seems to be the event that woke up the vast majority of the population.
Yeah.
And at least got people questioning things instead of being just blindly trusting in certain organizations and entities.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult when you want to blindly trust these organizations and institutions because they're what you grew up, knowing to be the truth and the all being and all powerful. And you're kind of like, they're not God. We know that for a fact, but they should have the answers to our questions.
Yeah.
And they don't.
I mean, there was a point in like probably 2018, 2019. This is how like dramatic it was. I probably, if the Army said, sell me your soul and you can do whatever you need to do to protect the country, I would have been like, it's yours. And now it's like complete course reversal.
Yep.
I
think that was certainly me in college as well, which
because you went to Citadel, right?
Yep. That was definitely me for that period of time. And you kind of get out and you're like, okay, like you see a little bit of the world and experience other things, meet different people. For me, I moved from Bible Belt to Boston. And that was, eye-opening in of itself, and traveled abroad with Jackson as well. So got to see a lot of those things, which was wonderful. But I feel like if you don't get outside your shell, your box just a little bit, your eyes are never truly open. Yeah, for sure. You don't actually see it. You can't actually physically like interact with it. But once you do that, it definitely changes things for sure. And that's the whole PSYOP and conspiracy theory conversation. We could go on for hours. So we will probably hold on to that one for maybe another episode at some point. But
especially when I'm out of the Army.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put the brakes on that one for just a little bit. So we'll hold off on that for just a little while. But I do appreciate, kind of talking a little bit about the military and your background there, and giving a little bit of a history, which is wonderful. But I know a lot of what we want to discuss today is around business and your launching of A-Bomb.
Sure.
Which, just to go back on that, my first question really has to do with the branding. We've already talked about it, but
Yeah.
how did you come to this branding in particular? You have an interest in this kind of era, but
Yeah.
what is, who helped you with the branding? Did you do all the branding yourself? How did you come to these different designs? How did you come to 4 different flavors? All those questions come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started in 2020 when I was in language school. I noticed that like everyone was drinking like in my opinion, subpar drinks because, you're in language school, you're just trying to stay alert.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, there can be something better, because the entire time I was in SOCM, I was taking nootropics. I've always been kind of a nootropic guy, because it worked, especially before like test days. It definitely works.
Yep.
Living example of that. But the branding, I've always been kind of obsessed with the atomic age. I don't know why either. It's actually kind of interesting. I've tried to actually figure it out myself. I'm thinking it's because it was such an inspiring time where people had like hope and optimism for the future, and then it inspired like so much like retrofuturism designs and artwork. And if you look at like that period in time, like with technology, I mean, we leaped and bounded in technology in that time, and it's always just
Dramatically.
been super fascinating. And I've watched a lot of documentaries on like the atomic age and like nuclear weapons and all that. And like there was one that I was watching, I don't know, a couple years ago. And at the atomic test site, actually, which is history on this can, the orange cream can, we talk about the atomic test site. There was Marines there where they would essentially detonate a nuclear bomb and then have them basically watch it and then walk towards it, which is crazy to me. But
They would choose the Marines to do that, though.
Yeah, they would. Absolutely. They would choose the Marines. It's crazy. It's like, why would you do that?
Hey, man, we want you to walk towards an A-bomb. Are you okay with that?
Go towards this mushroom cloud and all this fallout. It's like, what the heck?
It's a great idea.
It's insane. But if you listen to like how these guys describe a nuclear bomb, or I guess an atomic bomb, they get like really emotional, because a lot of them would say it's like you're almost like seeing God, and it like really messes them up. And so I just find that whole like era just super fascinating. It's probably like a bad era, but I don't know. For me, I love it. And the designs, a lot of people don't know this, but the designs on the cans, I have a son. I designed like the ones with the kid on it as my son. And some of the ads that we run where there's like a family or there's like a dad and a kid, that's me and my son actually. And so I wanted to kind of capture that, because that's kind of cool, because hopefully he can, take the reins of the company whenever I clock out for the final time.
Or at least get royalties for life, regardless.
Yeah, at least get royalties for life. That'd be kind of sweet. But yeah, I just wanted to create every can has a purpose. So like Orange Cream Meltdown,
cool.
I wanted to kind of capture the design of like an orange cream sickle style drink. And so, we came up with the idea of like an orange melting. I think that was my wife's idea, but I came up with like the kid in the pool eating an orange dreamsicle ice cream, and then putting the atomic test site on there because that pertains to the atomic test site for the atomic history that's on the can.
And each of the cans has a different like atomic history lesson, correct?
Yeah.
Are they all? So they're all unique though.
Mm-hmm, they're all unique. Yeah. So like Kiwi Fallout, we talk about the special forces teams that used to have suitcase nukes, and they would jump in. They could jump into any area from high altitude and deploy a suitcase nuke.
Huh.
Yeah. So
Sorry, after you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I've been hearing a lot more about like not suitcase but backpack nukes as of late.
It's a real thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's been very it's become talked a lot more about recently with like the drones.
Mm-hmm.
People were talking about the drones potentially finding like nuclear, bombs, and that being the reason for all the drones.
I think there's 50 unaccounted for suitcase nukes that the KGB brought into the US during the Cold War.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's my understanding. I'd have to check the facts on that. It may not be 50, but if I remember correctly, it's like 50 suitcase nukes are where their sleeper cells are still just hanging out.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Because whenever, the media comes on and starts talking about the drones looking for radioactive material, and certain people are like, "Oh, that's not happening." You're like, anything could be possible. So let's keep our minds wide open to the possibility there, because frankly, if there's 50 that are unaccounted for from the Cold War era, there's probably other stuff going on as well. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. And that's not for everybody to worry about. But at the same time, should definitely keep an open mind to what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, every can has a unique design. Cool. Like reactor red. We put that on there, and there's some interesting things that we had to do to stay in the legal parameters of the cans, because some people might think that they're going to be drinking something radioactive. So kind of found that out in the process.
Is there a disclaimer on the can for that?
No, I don't think I need to do that, but you just never know these days. Right. But my lawyer said we're good to go with all the branding and stuff. There shouldn't be any issues. So
are you sure there's not there's not like a little bit of uranium in here? Just a little bit?
On the down low, yeah. You put a little yellow cake in there,
a little sprinkle of uranium in each one of your A-bomb drinks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got to power people up.
So speaking of nootropics and ingredients, was your main focus of this, were you thinking like, because of the guys you obviously were serving with, you were thinking, okay, I want to get a more clean energy drink in their hands, something to help them focus. Yeah. Was it more like focus oriented, or was it more like working out oriented? Or was it like a mixture of everything for you?
It's kind of a mixture of those two. Okay. Because when I was in SOCM, you take a test every single week, and it's like you're just stressed out constantly. Like there's actually a before and after picture of me before I started SOCM and after I started SOCM, and I look like I aged. I went in there like a little kid, and I look like I look like this now. I aged like 10 years. It was crazy.
Did you lose some weight too?
I lost weight and I gained weight. So I fluctuated like within a 20-pound interval just consistently. It was crazy. Hormones were all out of whack, which is good. It was good stress. But I wanted to give people something that was something other than just like a shotgun blast of V vitamins and caffeine and like sugar, artificial sugar.
Right.
I knew there was just something else. And I used to take these pill forms of nootropics, and I'm like, why don't they put these in an energy drink? This doesn't make sense. And this was like 2019 timeframe, 2020. And I'm like, somebody's got to do this. And so then like all of a sudden it just started spinning in my head, and I'm like, I can do this. I can definitely do this. Because a lot of these nootropics help with working out too. There's like some studies that show that our blend that we use in there, like alpha GPC, L-theanine, L-tyrosine, can give like a 26% more increase in explosive power. Is that the reality of the case? Probably not, but there's still evidence pointing towards that it will help you in your workouts.
Right.
And it'll also give you a cognitive enhancement. It's like, well, why wouldn't you take this,
Well, not just because you're on the show and not just because we're talking the product, but I have been drinking it over the past 2 weeks, week and a half, and my workouts have been what I describe as cleaner. I feel like I have not been like hyped up and down the workout. Yeah. It's not like I go into the workout like super hyped up, like I just drank a Monster, but I go in thinking, okay, I'm more focused and more dialed in. And so I feel like my movements are better. Might just be a little bit of a placebo. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the drink has helped me to focus on my workout specifically. And
I don't think it's placebo, honestly, because I haven't really talked about too much of the effects of nootropics I haven't marketed that at all. Yep. And there's a specific reason. I wanted to see what the results are from people. And so I've like barely touched on it, like just barely. And the reports that I'm getting from hundreds of people, I mean, I probably get, I don't know, a couple hundred comments a day, which I respond to everything. And I get maybe 50 to 100 DMs every day, which I respond to those. And the results that I'm hearing from people, they always say, I feel locked in, I feel dialed in, I get good energy, but I'm not jittery.
Correct.
And it's like, well, this is such a simple problem to solve. I don't know why more people haven't done it. There's only a couple brands that I know, and they're really good brands too, by the way, but there's only a couple brands that I know that use nootropics. My only issue with those brands, taste for sure. It's got to taste good.
Yep.
The second thing is we use alpha GPC 98%, which is technically like 99.4 according to our lab test, but 98 is the threshold. So we're going to just always stick with 98. But some of the other brands use 50%, which they use a filler, which is called silicone dioxide, which is not bad for you. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not really the accurate dose that you need for it to be effective.
What is alpha GPC?
So alpha GPC is basically the precursor to acetylcholine, which is like your neurotransmitters. It just basically helps you be more dialed in. It helps with like motivation, memory, things like that. There's even some studies showing like reaction time is better with alpha GPC and some of these other nootropics that are in here as well. It's probably one of the best nootropics out there if you want to increase motivation and kind of just feel a little bit more locked in. Like if you were to pick one out of all of these, I recommend alpha GPC.
Which is why it's 98% of the drink.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
That's why that's why we use 98% of that. I take a pill form when I don't drink one of these because I don't want to say I need it at this point, but it's like, why wouldn't you?
Well, you know the effects of it, and you're like, well, that's what makes me feel better. And by the way, I mentioned placebo earlier. I think what I was getting at with that was not that the drink is a placebo, but more so like I've been drinking over the past few weeks, and I've been reading everything about it, and I'm like, I actually feel this, and it feels good. And I'm like, is it a mixture of like the drink and the nootropics, and also me just wanting it to work, or is it truly the ingredients? And I've delved into this. I've also taken nootropics before. The nootropics for sure work, right? We both know that, which is obviously why you put them in the drink. But then you mix that in with other things, a little bit of caffeine, just enough caffeine, not 300 milligrams, which some of these drinks are doing.
It's too much.
Because then when you do that, you are super jittery the entire time.
Yeah.
So, so it seems like
they've shown. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying it seems like the best of all worlds. Are you in? You've obviously come to this conclusion now that these are the ingredients you wanted to use, but how long did it take you to get to this mixture of ingredients? Because not many people really talk about the creation timeline, right? Like you had this thought, you had this idea of, I'm going to create this business, I'm going to create this drink, but it took a couple years for you to get to this point.
Yeah. So it started 2020. Everything we're self-funded. So I got a SOCM bonus. And then I've been saving my money ever since, because I don't want to take investors, because I'll just say it. I want to be the dictator. I want to be in control, because if there's a problem, I can immediately fix it. And I don't want to have to go to some dude and be like, can I do this? Like, no, I want to be in control. It's the right thing to do for the customer too. But it took, probably a year to really dial in exactly what we need, because there's a lot of studies out there on alpha GPC, for example, and what dosing is correct. And some doses, for me, I feel the best on alpha GPC when I take about 600 to 800 milligrams. We put 400 in ours, because some people feel better and they get that effect at 400. Some studies show it's fine at 200. And it's like, okay, well, let's go in the middle. Let's do 400, because it's always fine to just overdose just a little bit, because it's not, if they don't need the extra 100 milligrams or 200, they're just going to pee it out anyways. No big deal. Right. So I'd rather give people just a tad bit more than not enough, And
Makes
so
sense.
when you compare, and what's crazy too with nootropics too, if you pair them with caffeine, this hasn't been studied a lot, so this is more anecdotal, and I can only say this because I've taken these nootropics without caffeine, where I've just taken it in pill format.
Yep.
Whenever I take it with caffeine, I don't know if it's because these things can cross the blood-brain barrier, but being a medical professional, my thought process is, at least, if you pair it with caffeine, because caffeine can cross the blood-brain barrier, so do these nootropics, I think it almost has like a supercharging effect with efficacy. It's a synergistic effect. I think that's what occurs. I think there needs to be more research on it. There's some in the works right now, but I don't know any timelines on where it's going to be at this point. But it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Very, very.
Yeah.
And you also have just 10 calories in each can too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know. What does a typical energy drink have? I haven't really looked at like others.
It depends. So if it's a zero sugar, it's probably going to be 5 to 10, or really 5 to 15 calories depending on the brand and how much sucralose they use, because there's a little bit of calories in artificial sweeteners.
Yep.
There used to be, I think it's still in effect now, but there used to be a grace for how much calories are actually in a product. So like if you eat a protein bar and it says 250 calories, well, there might be like 270 calories in there.
Yep.
So that's not the case with this. We dialed it in to pretty much, I mean, there might be like 7 calories in one and maybe 11 in another. But
got it.
Yep.
I just feel like the ingredients is not something that I've ever really paid much attention to until recently, right? The past couple of years, with different individuals coming into politics and obviously RFK and all of this other stuff going on, whether or not you agree with it or don't agree with it, to each their own. But it has definitely shed a light on what we are consuming on a frequent basis.
Yeah.
So this kind of checks all the boxes for me as it relates to a better alternative to other energy drinks that I've been consuming, because I do love them, but I want something that's better for me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it can get me more dialed in. Across the board.
I agree with a lot about what RFK is doing with the food industry too, especially with like dyes and everything. Like it's like, this is so obvious. Like, we know this. Why are we still participating in this?
Right.
So there, in some of the research out there, this is the one thing that it's always kind of bothered me with like studies, is you can really find a study to fit whatever narrative you want. So whenever I was doing the research on like nootropics, for example, I read almost every single study that's out there and took the general consensus of all of them and digested them, because there's some out there that say, oh, well, it does nothing. And then, but the vast majority, it's like, yeah, bro, this does something. This clearly works. And so, yeah, I love what he's doing. I think what he's doing is great. You know, I don't like the fact that, I will say this openly, I have no problem admitting this, I don't like the fact that I have to use preservatives in my drinks. I don't like that, but the cost to do a non-preservative one, I mean, nobody's going to pay like $5 to $8 for an energy drink. Nobody's going to do that.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, everything in moderation is generally going to be okay. Yep. And that's the approach I take.
Like, probably don't drink 12 of these in a day.
Probably not a good idea. I mean, you can technically die if you drink enough water. So it's like, you know,
like don't eat like 2 boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts for breakfast like I did the other day. But hey, to each their own. So.
I can eat a whole tub of ice cream, dude. I get it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I live across from McDonald's, and I'm like, I look at the McDonald's every single day. I'm like, you're haunting me, and I would love 5 McDoubles right now, but I'm not going to do that myself. So.
I get it, dude.
But seriously, though, everything in moderation. Nobody really talks about that much, especially when you're in a country where you can have access to as much stuff as you want. Yeah, but with everything, it's obviously super important. Yeah. I'm looking at your FAQ page right now and just kind of looking through different questions. What if I'm not satisfied with the product? Do you offer affiliate programs? Where do you ship? Do you have a physical store? I'm assuming these are the frequently asked questions. But what have you maybe gotten as of late from your clients? What's been the biggest question that you've had to respond to as of late?
The biggest one there's 2, I should say.
Okay.
Does it have sugar? Which that's a fun one. Because it's right there, but that's okay. I answer every time. No problem. I get it. Some people don't want to go to the website. But the other common one is it in store? That is easily the most common question I get.
Well, that's a good question to begin.
It's a good question.
It's absolutely really good question.
It's a really good question, and I totally understand it. And we are in a few stores. We've had stores have actually been asking me for product at this point. I thought I was going to have to go hunt stores, but they're actually asking me at this point.
Well, that's a really good question to be getting.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so we wholesale to them, which is great. We have a couple in South Carolina, one in New York, one in Arizona, and then there's going to be about 40-ish gas stations, convenience stores in North Carolina, the Fort Bragg area, that are going to take it in. And there's going to be some supplement stores also taking it in as well. But we have another one. We just picked up another one in Wisconsin. It's like a cornhole bar that's like super cool. I was like, whoa, I didn't even know they had it.
Are these people just they're finding you? Obviously, they ordered the product, they've tried it, and they're like, we want some in our store.
Yeah.
Cool. So they're not all just like personal connections. At this point, you've gotten outside of personal connections that's amazing.
Yeah, gyms, game stores. Game stores are like, they love it. at this point. There's one that is in South Carolina. I'll give him a plug. It's That Computer Store. The guy, Steven, is a super nice guy. He hit me up through my email, and he's like, hey, I want to get, 12 cases. I was in production actually for the drink in outside of Atlanta in a town or city called Marietta.
Yep.
And he's in was it Columbus, South Carolina, where
Columbia.
Fort Jackson, Columbia,
Yep.
that's correct. And so it was right on my route through, and I stopped. He bought 12 cases, and he's like, I think I'm going to need more. And then he just hit me up again. He's like, let me get like 20 cases. And I'm like, all right, bro, we got you.
So you're like, Cameron, we need to wrap up this podcast because I got some work to do. So.
Oh no, bro. Yeah, I got time, man. I got
time. That's such a great problem to have. And I'm so excited. I'm so happy for you. I just, in talking to so many businesses over the years and having these conversations, and when you're in an early stage of building something, I've mainly worked with startups and been a part of startups. And so when you're in those early stages of grinding to make something happen, and it's like 2 years into it, and you're like, wow, like people are ordering from Wisconsin. How cool is that? So
we get
feeling,
crazy amount of orders from California, and it's like, I unfortunately people have to pay for shipping because the margins in beverage is like razor thin. It's like razor thin, and people are paying like $15 in shipping, and I'm like, dude, thank you. Like, and it's not like a one-time thing, like it's all the time. And we have a policy here that if people pay for shipping, we get a discount we use an app called ShipStation. We plug it into our website, and we get a discount with shipping. If for some reason someone overpays on shipping, we refund them the difference. I don't care if it's 50 cents. We refund them the difference on that. And so doing that has also built like a ton of like loyalty to the people that live way out, on the West Coast, which is awesome. I mean, we have so many people reordering at this point. It's incredible.
What has been your biggest lesson learned in these early stages of launching? Because you launched, and now you're probably running around like a chicken with your head cut off sort of situation. Yeah. And it looks like it from your videos, which is super cool. But what is the biggest lesson you've learned up to this point?
Everyone wants a pound of flesh, and I have to learn how to say no. I'm a big, I'm a medic. And so like, I love helping people. It's like, oh my gosh, like if I could give it away for free, I totally would.
Yep.
I would love to do that. Actually, that would be incredible because people love it so much. But learning to say no, because there's a lot of people, and I heard this on another business podcast, Andy Frisell. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Very.
Yeah, big fan of him. His brother Sal actually said because his brother Sal's kind of similar to me, and like he wants to help people and everything, and he's like, learning to say no was the hardest thing. And unfortunately, I've had to say no to quite a few people because I get a DM. I probably get 10 DMs a day and maybe 5 emails a day of people wanting sponsorship, free product. That's actually the most common one is free product. And it's like, dude, like I'm like self-funded.
I just started. Yeah.
I just started. Like,
yeah.
Like, yep. I mean, the one guy was kind of like a dick about it. And I was like, would you ever ask Monster for a free product? Like, no, you wouldn't. So what makes a difference, But that's been the biggest lesson is just like learning how to like spot scams. Number one, like I'm actually getting ready to post another video on like people like trying to scam me where, like when you first start a business, there's companies out there that want to charge you $500 to start an LLC. And it's like, bitch, it's like $50 with the state. Like, come on, like there's a special place in hell for you, Yep. And then everyone, like once they see like you start progressing more, then the scammers start coming out of like, they start like crawling out of the ground at this point. Like, let me get as much as I can from you. So that's definitely been a huge lesson. And, I appreciate it. Luckily, I've only had a couple expensive lessons, which it's fine. It's not a big deal. I won't make that mistake again.
Yep.
But those have definitely been the big ones for sure. And I do appreciate people asking like, hey, can I get a sample? I actually do appreciate that because it's like, okay, you have interest. And then I explain like, hey, I can't do that. Like, here's why. And most of the time, I'd say 75% of the time they buy.
Yeah. Well, the whole sample thing, especially when you're a startup and people really should understand this. It's $35 for a pack of 12.
Yep. 35 for a pack.
Okay. So it's $35 for a pack of 12. Do you really need a sample or can you just order a pack? And then let's talk from there. I've never really understood that portion of it. It's like, do you not have $35 to spare to support my brand? And then we can discuss things accordingly.
Well, and I made it even easier too. Like we created a sample pack that people can buy where it's a flavor of each, and it's $22 because, and you think like, wow, that's like $5 and some change for a can. Well, if I ship a 4-pack of cans, let's say to, I don't know, Florida,
Yep.
it's the same, it's almost the same cost to ship a 12-pack, which is just mind blowing. And I like explain that to people, like, look, I can send you these 4, and like I when I first started the sample pack, I was losing money every single time. So then I had to put like a $2 flat rate shipping on it, so people can see like, okay, hey, look, I got to pay for shipping.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we created that low barrier to entry because some people, it's like, man, 35 plus shipping. So, you know, shipping is usually like, depending on where you're at, like $8. All right, well, okay, now that just increased to $42, $43. Okay. It's still the same price if they were to go buy it at a store, because stores are selling it for about $3.79 a can. So now you get like the convenience of, well, I can just order online. It comes to my house instead of going to a store and paying $3.79 a can.
Right.
Which, you know, because we're a premium drink, and that's the category we want to be in. Because I do think we're the best in the premium category space for sure. That's my opinion. But, you know, we created that low barrier to entry, $22. You could try one of each flavor. I personally don't recommend it. I personally recommend just buying the variety pack. It's $35 plus shipping. It turns from $5-something a can to like $3-something a can. And I guarantee people are going to like it. Like I can guarantee it. You know, even people that a really common thing that's been happening too is people have been like, I don't normally like a kiwi flavor, but holy shit, I love your kiwi. This is incredible.
I was surprised. I'm not a kiwi guy. Never have been a kiwi.
No, me neither. Yeah.
But it's good. It's not my favorite, but it is good. And I think that's the kind of the cool part about the variety pack specifically, is because you do get the opportunity to try all of them. But to your point, you might as well, if you're going to order them, might as well order 12.
Yeah, so just order the 12. It's a better deal for both parties, in my opinion. You know,
yeah.
But I wanted to create that low barrier for people so they can at least.
And you're supporting a small business, so you might as well go ahead and dive in. Well, small for now. At this point.
We'll be global next. You know.
Yeah, be in North Korea here soon. So
absolutely.
Hopefully not as a true A-bomb.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on the FAQ side of things that you think people should know more about or should stop asking online that you'd appreciate?
I mean, I don't mind people asking questions. It doesn't necessarily bother me. The one that I would say is we are a premium drink. We are not, you know, like Monster, good brand. They have a good product. It tastes good for some people. I'm not personally like a fan. There's only a couple that have flavors I like by them, but no hate there at all. But you know, a common question I get is like, wow, $3 a can. Who do you think you are? And it's like, well, we're not sugar, water, and caffeine. I promise you that. It is a different feeling whenever you drink one of our products. I can go buy a Rip It for 79 cents, and Rip It's awesome. You know, very supportive of military. You know, when we were deployed and other people that were deployed, especially during OIF and OEF, they were getting free cases of Rip It. Awesome company. They make a good product, but they can sell it at the price that they can sell it because it's just basically artificial sugar, water, and caffeine. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your mojo, then I say go for it. But one thing is with ours is it is a different type of sensation that you're going to get. And that is the biggest thing I can say to people. You know, I would love, there's a guy at work that I know that drinks 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. I'm not sure how his adrenal glands are still functioning at this point.
Having heart palpitations at every single, holy crap.
Oh, it's insane.
Well, I think about, I say, holy crap. A cup of coffee is what, 250?
It depends on the roast, but most of them are about 80 to 100.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess a high intensity. So yeah, I mean, a few cups of coffee times 10.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I crank in like probably 600 to 800 milligrams of caffeine a day. It depends on what's going on. You know, today I think we're at like 400, and that's usually where you want to stop.
So this is you even keel right now. This is not you super hyped up.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty like leveled out right now at this point. Yeah, normally I'm like, let's go, you know. let's go lift some weights or something. You know, if I get too hyped up, I got to go to my downstairs garage in my gym, and I got to start like deadlifting, you know, like, all right, let's tire out.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, just in general, this is a lot of great information on the brand and why you created it and all the above. What's kind of the vision for the future? What are your long-term goals here?
So the biggest one I can say is getting it nationally in stores.
Okay.
So it's more accessible to people. You know, this is kind of like a little secret in the industry, but you're way more profitable as a beverage company selling it strictly online because you don't have to share any of the profits with distributors. I plan on doing a lot of self-distribution, especially locally, and I want to get it in stores, not like Walmart, because there's also a saying in the beverage industry, the quickest way to kill your brand as a startup is put it in Walmart, which is unfortunate, but I definitely want to get it into chains like Sheetz, Wawa, really any brand that's like a convenience store. I want to get it in there because it's a quality product. And I know that if they just try it and they see the sales, they're going to be like, how much can you make?
Right.
And that's a question I've been asked already. I am working with a company right now that has like 1,600 stores, and they're looking into it. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's definitely one of the big goals. I also have an idea for a greens powder.
Okay.
I don't want to dive too much into that. We could do it offline. I'll definitely tell you all about it because I can tell you nobody's done it, and I'm researching the hell out of it right now. Because I've had a lot of requests by customers to create a greens powder because they're like, we know you research the stuff.
When you say a greens powder,
like a daily greens.
Got it.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I take a daily greens and red every day. You know, I use like either First Form, great brand. Sometimes I'll use Bear Performance Nutrition. He's a
What's
prior
the big
Army
green
guy.
powder that is marketed on like all podcasts? What's the main?
AG1.
AG1. Thank you. So something like AG1.
Yeah, and AG1, from my understanding, they have a quality product. But I want to create something that's more than just the standard greens powder.
Got it.
I have a lot of ideas, and we're looking into it.
Cool. Exciting. You also mentioned
awesome.
leaving something for your son, leaving a business for your son. So I'm assuming that's a part of the long-term legacy vision here as well.
Oh yeah. A lot of people in the beverage industry, and there's nothing wrong with this. They like to create the brand and then sell it to Coke or Pepsi. They call it the exit. Hell no. If I'm not buried in an A-Bomb Energy, Oakley pullover or something, I've royally screwed up. Royally, because this is like, I am in this like for life at this point, because there's just so many different avenues where I can help people get a better product. And, like one of the things that really frustrates me, I won't name any names, but like when I call a company and I get, just put on the merry-go-round of callers and help centers, or I email a company because there's an issue and then I get no help, that like royally pisses me off. One of the biggest compliments I've actually had with, not besides like taste and the feeling, is customer service. Because people will email me at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm generally up till like 3-4 a.m. every day, and I respond. Like there's been some instances where people, we're shipping liquid, and so sometimes a can will burst or something like that. Hey, no problem. Get you a new one out first thing in the morning. We sent one guy, it was totally my fault. I sent him a variety pack instead of an orange cream pack because it was like 3 a.m. and I was packing an order. I'm like, you know what? I screwed that up. I'll get your one out in the morning, first thing, no problem. And he was like, well, I wanted to try the other flavors. I'm like, well, hey, you get a 12-pack for free.
Speaking of which, are you able to set it up on a recurring buy right now on the website?
Yeah, we actually just got the subscription thing going, and we lowered the price so based on the volume that you do. The cheapest is $30.99, and that's with a weekly delivery. And the amount of people that have signed up for that is like, whoa. Ooh,
that's great.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah,
that's
and we have those variety packs, and we have one pallet left of variety packs, and so I had to spend like 10 grand on a machine that will allow me to shrink wrap them, so I can create my own.
Do you have the machine yet, or is it coming in?
Not yet. Well, I thought it was going to be here this week. It's going to be next week. So then I had to go to Amazon and buy a heat gun, the plastic wrap, and an L bar, so I could it's going to be
a process. That's awesome.
It's going to be a process. Awesome. Yeah. But I don't want people to, especially for the subscription people, I don't want them to be like, hey, where's my stuff? Like
we'll probably talk about this a little more offline, because I'm getting into a company that'll deal a lot with supplies, and so I'm interested to know about this real quick as it relates to keeping up with demand, because you've had a lot of demand, and it's continued to ramp. Are you doing pretty well on that front of keeping up with and getting the product, that side of things as well?
Okay. To a certain degree, yes.
Has it become like aggressively more difficult as you've scaled, or is it just like you've kind of prepared for this time properly?
I've kind of prepared, like somewhat prepared. So like in the Army, you always have like the PACE plan. I take the same approach. And right now we're on E. So for people that don't know, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. And right now we're on the emergency plan for keeping up with demand, because when I did this first order, we did about 50,000 cans. We did like 46,544. We've sold more than half, and I thought I was gonna have to re-up my order in about 6 months, and we've already placed the next order at this point. Luckily, we forward planned right when we started seeing like, okay, this stuff's flying. Okay, right. Something's going on, and I'm like, hey, we don't have the money right now, but guess what? I'm gonna get it. And so we just started placing all the orders, and now we will probably be in the next production run next month.
Super
or
cool.
So. Yeah.
Super cool.
So
what, this might be too much. What's the MOQ for you right now?
So So
we don't have to go there if you don't want to.
No, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Are you talking about with like the co-packer or? Yeah. So we found a really good co-packer. It's called BSI. They're in Marietta, Georgia. Highly recommend if anybody ever wants to do any co-packing, go there. Their minimum order quantity, I don't remember exactly. I mean, they can do any quantity you want. You're just going to pay for it. So I think the minimum they'll do is 300 cans. Initially I was going to do like 5,000 cans, and I'm like, oh, this is a joke. Like, what are we doing here? Because I just wanted to kind of get my feet wet. It's going to be being a little bit of a pussy. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just send it. Let's go. And so we sent it, and we did. 46,000 cans divided by 4, whatever that is, like 12,000 cans a piece. So or 11,000 cans a piece. So we ended up just doing that.
Cool.
So, but most of them, I'll tell you a story here. I was trying to keep everything local in North Carolina as much as I can, because, one, control piece. I want to be able to keep logistics.
Dictator mode.
Dictator. That's right. Dictator mode, It's better for the customer, but I wanted to keep that control piece and also save costs on logistics, because when you have a truck coming in, like depending on the distance, just moving our product was like $2,700 just to move, those cans to my location. But the other thing was I wanted to kind of help the local economy too. But I called one place in particular, and they laughed at me. I remember them. And I'm definitely going to call them later and be like, hey, just so you know, you laughed at me. Because it was very embarrassing. And, it's like, well, why didn't you put your MOQ on your website?
Yep.
You would have saved us all some time.
Absolutely.
But the company we use now, great people, very supportive of the military. They do a lot of outreach and stuff for disabled veterans and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, this is even better. Like,
great fit.
This was a match made in heaven.
Great fit. Yeah. I'm assuming these are a lot of things that you obviously found out about as you were going through this process.
Yeah.
But has there been anything that's kind of caught you off guard completely? Just completely out of the blue, you're like, I did not expect that to happen. People ordering so much, which has been great.
Yeah, that one definitely caught me off guard. That one surprised the hell out of me. I would say lying.
Okay.
Which is weird because, like, I've been in the military for so long. I haven't worked the civilian side.
Yeah.
There's been a couple companies that I just, unfortunately, we can't do business again because they lied to me, and that one definitely caught me off guard because I was like, wow, why would you lie to me? But that's probably the biggest one, actually. And it was quite shocking.
But also speaks volumes to your value set as well as a brand and as a company too. And it's like, hey, you're going to lie to us. We're not going to do business with you anymore. So people
Yeah.
can have that faith in you that, hey, if somebody does you wrong or does the brand wrong, you're not going to work with them anymore. So
Yeah. I like sleeping at night. And so like I already suck at sleeping. So it's like,
yeah,
man,
like
if
sleeping
I,
for a few hours.
yeah, a few hours, like it's like, oh, please,
Yeah.
and it's like, if I make a mistake with a customer, like I pack an order incorrectly, like what I did to that one customer, I felt
Yeah.
horrible. Like that, I felt awful. I was like, oh my gosh, man. Luckily he was super cool about it and didn't care. But it's like making mistakes for me, it's like a huge deal. It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, man. Cause I hold myself to like a impossible standard. And I'm always going to hold myself to an impossible standard. There's that Matthew McConaughey speech where he's like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Well, I'm never going to reach the person I want to be in 10 years. And that's how I always approach it. So whenever I deal with like ethical situations, it's like, I don't care what we have to do. We're doing the right thing. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, that might be a good place for us to wrap up this podcast episode. All things considered, you are the king of customer service right now. And if we keep you off for too long, you might not be able to pick up that phone call. So I don't want to do that to you. I want to keep that 100% streak going. So I really appreciate you hopping on and joining the show, talk about all things military and mainly the launching of the new product, which is awesome. Is there anything you want to conclude with and share with people as kind of a final message? And we'll drop all the information for the products in the description and show notes. But is there anything else you want to share?
Yeah. I mean, if you try the product, I guarantee you're going to like it. And I guarantee there's going to be a different feeling. Even if you're a caffeine addict like myself, you're going to feel it. And you can trust like my company, we are always going to do the right thing, like always. And, we want to put the human touch back into business. That's why we handwrite every card. We look up people that we think we might know. We always try to personalize every single order as much as we can. And, we actually do care. And, I get so frustrated by poor customer service, poor products. Like people work hard for their money. They work really hard and times are always tough. They might get tougher. Who knows? Hopefully they get better. But like if you spend $1 with me, it doesn't matter. You're going to be treated like you spent $1 million with me. Cause I do. I mean, it bothers me whenever, I spend money with a company and I get treated like crap. And so it's like, nah, we're not playing that game. Everyone is valuable. So that's how we roll.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, once again, I really appreciate it. It's been nice getting to know you a bit better as well. And I appreciate Jackson putting us in touch. And I'm pumped for my next order of A-bomb because
yeah, dude.
It's
gonna be awesome.
It going. We might have to jump on the weekly package here soon because
dude.
I don't know that I'm drinking that much of it yet, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah, man, we got some cool contests coming up too, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be great.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Well, I will. I look forward to launching this episode and reconnecting here soon.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Love to do it again.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks.